a warm welcome to Karrie Landsverk.
Thank you. How many of you were listing off people that you know that you would love to have one of those remote controls for? Come on, don't be shy. Hopefully it's not anybody at your table today, right? How many of you might conveniently forget to turn that remote back on after you put it on silent? Oh, I'm sorry. Has that been on silent our whole conversation? Oops. Communication. We love it. We hate it. It all depends on who we're talking with, right? Are we being honest? Sometimes it feels like we have just met people and we've been best friends forever. We have an instant connection with them, doesn't it? Don't you love those connections when you meet people like that, or you get to work on a team with somebody like that and you just click right away? Sometimes when we're communicating with people, it can feel like nails going down a chalkboard and you just can't wait to get away from them quick enough. It's a challenge. I don't care what organization you're in. When we're dealing with people, we think differently, we talk differently, we process information differently, and it can be a struggle. It can also be a great opportunity for us to improve and to challenge ourselves to see things differently. So for today's session, I want to focus on how we can increase our delivery so that people actually hear the message we're trying to convey. Because that's one of the biggest obstacles I find in communication, is that we get hung up on somebody's delivery. We don't like how they're saying things to us, so we completely tune them out and we miss sometimes some really important information that they're trying to convey to us. Or we, in turn, don't adapt our delivery, our style, and how we're communicating, and we don't get our message across, and people don't hear what we're trying to share with them. So whether we talk too fast, we talk too slow, we ask too many questions, we're not direct enough for some people, we can put them off sometimes, or they can tune us out, and we miss that message. When I was a director of financial services in a call center, I had a young man working for me, and he was very analytical, very thorough, very systematic and orderly. And I asked him to come in and give me an update on the call center statistics, because I needed to know how we doing in meeting our goals, how we doing in meeting our customer needs. So he came in, and you have to understand, when I ask for an update, to me that means 5 minutes maximum. That's all. I just want to know high level, how are we doing and what kinds of things do we need to look at to make adjustments. Turns out, his version of an update, quite different than mine. He came into my office with what looked like a manuscript and set it down of pages and pages of reports, boom, on my desk. And I thought, oh no, this is going to be a lot longer than 5 minutes. You ever had those moments when you're trying to talk to somebody and you're clearly on a different wavelength? So he proceeds to go through these reports that he pulls for me, page by page by page, line by line by line. And he's going on and on. And I feel my eyes glaze over. And I'm off in some distant land. And all of a sudden my life flashes before me. There it goes. It's never coming back again. And I knew I was never going to get that time back. Have you ever had conversations like that? You can feel my pain in the moment. How productive do you think I really was in that conversation at that point? I had clearly tuned this poor guy out. I asked him to come into my office and give me an update. What I could have done differently is, first of all, appreciated the fact that I had somebody on my team who loved to look at the numbers, who loved to pull reports and do all this analysis, because I hated doing that kind of stuff. And I didn't have that kind of mindset. I was annoyed that he was taking up too much of my time, that he was going into too much detail where I just wanted a high-level report. And I didn't help build our connection better. I could have also set him up for success in our conversation by sharing what my version of an update was. What did I really want to hear from him? Instead of wrongly assuming that when I said update, we would be on the same page and the same understanding. I didn't do that either. So instead of strengthening that connection and appreciating the differences that he brought to the team, I probably drove more of a wedge in our relationship. And that was a lesson that I'll never forget, because he had great value that he brought to the team. And if I funneled it differently, we could have had a much more productive conversation. The reality is that there are different communication styles out there. And we want all 4 styles, there's 4 main styles out there, operating in their greatest capacity. That's how we build teams that truly thrive, is by noticing, seeking out, and applying those differences in our teams. You see, there's some styles that help us to know when we need to take a risk and move forward. There's some styles that will say, whoa, 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 let's consider. There's some questions that are unanswered here. Let's look at this a little bit more. There's some styles that help us to see the ideas and how to be innovative and how to reach that customer need that's out there. There's some styles that make sure all our I's are dotted, all our T's are crossed before we make critical decisions. Now there's some styles, my style, not so good at the details all the time. We're good at the ideas, we're good at fun, we're good at taking on new challenges, but we might miss some of those critical details before we go and run and jump off the cliff. We may not have checked the parachute before we do that. And so I'll never forget when I was 16, I lived on a farm. Anybody grow up on a farm here? I had horses. Who else had horses maybe? Anybody? All right. So I grew up on a horse farm, and typical teenager, and probably due to my styles, I was running around doing things on the farm, lost track of time, and I had to get to work. And so I realized, I better get to work. And so run out of the house, and at the time, I'm 16, I was given the farm truck to drive. So that was pretty cool for a young teenage girl. So I run out the door, hop up into the big old farm truck, head on the highway that we lived right off of. I'm checking both my side view mirrors, all's good. I got my seatbelt on, got hands 10 and 2, feeling like a pretty responsible young driver there. Heading, I think, I'll just make it in the nick of time. I'll slide into work and I'll be all set. So I go to check my rear view mirror. You can imagine my great surprise when I look in that mirror and I see a great big red horse trailer chasing after me down the highway. What is that? And how did that get there? You see, details. I failed to notice that our truck was still hooked up to the horse trailer from the weekend horse show that we had just attended a couple days prior. That young man I talked about, he probably would have noticed that right away. He would have never left the driveway before unhooking that trailer. Now, the other good thing about my style is that we like to overcome challenge. So I did figure out a way, but you have to understand, I'm 16. I've never driven the truck and trailer, let alone try and maneuver it down a highway that I'm now driving on. Not my best move yet. But I do figure out a way to get that truck and trailer back home, get it unhooked and parked and head off to work. And if you want to know the story of how I did that, you'll have to come see me at my table because it's actually pretty funny. So we have our strengths and we have our limitations due to our styles. When left on our own too long, sometimes we can get ourselves into some sticky situations. But when we actually seek out and we know the different strengths on our team and what they bring, there's very unlikely chances that we would actually drive out with that truck and trailer still attached when we're trying to head out on the highway. Somebody on our team would notice that for us and say, wait, stop. You got a big trailer back there you might want to unhook first. So when we're communicating, we need to communicate. If we want to communicate with purpose and influence, we need to communicate in a way that people will best hear what we're saying. What does that mean? That means we have to be willing to adapt our message. So we need to change and draw closer to the way that somebody else is communicating so they actually hear what we're saying or our message gets lost. After the corporate environment, I moved over, as Lee shared, that be an HR director for a large pharmacy chain. My boss was a CFO, and he was as far over in what I would call in my program a mover. So very decisive, very results-oriented and competitive in nature, and really a bottom line type of guy. As you can tell, I'm not that kind of person. I like to have stories. I like to build up my cases and really try and influence and persuade through a lot of background and make it really exciting for him to say, wow, Karrie, you're a genius. Of course we want to go with that direction. I'm so glad that we have you on the team. And oh, by the way, here's a raise because you're just so smart. See, that's how I'd play it up in my mind. But you know, it turns out that's not exactly the way the conversations would go, because I would make it difficult for him to try and get through all the fluff in what I was sharing. It wasn't easy for him to find out, what do you need from me, Karrie? Just get to the point. And so I had to learn, if I wanted to have an effective relationship with him, a good, productive relationship, which is important, we need that I had to adapt my style to him. I had to be willing to change and let go of the stories, let go of the background and the fluff, and just be very concise and direct and say, this is what I need from you. Boom, boom, boom. Yes or no. And guess what happened? When I started doing that, and I was just very concise and direct, he actually started responding, whereas before, he would ignore me more times than not, and I'd have to follow up and follow up and follow up, and he started responding right away. And it was a win-win outcome, because I got what I needed to be able to go do what I was supposed to do, whether it was roll out a new training or update a policy. And he felt good too, because even though he didn't want to get involved in long, lengthy conversations, he wants me to do what I should be doing, right? He wants to be helpful. So he wanted to give me the answer that I needed. So it was a win-win outcome. It wasn't my comfort zone, mind you, but it did pay off in the end to have a better relationship. So if we want to change working cultures, if we want to boost productivity, increase collaboration, we need to be, it starts with communicating with intention, clarity, and purpose. And that's what I bring to my programs and your organization. So I would love to talk with you more, to share what programs we have. This is just one sample, but I do offer programs that go into delving further into effective communication skills, how to build collaborative relationships, and really increase productivity and performance in your company. So I thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to talking with you throughout the day. Thank you very much.